And we are back with another episode of the Hockey Princess podcast. I am your host, the Hockey Princess. It's one of 3 shows this week, guys. You're going to be so sick of our faces. Crusty old guy here once again. What?
Nobody could be sick of my face.
All
Not
right.
going to happen. That's
Just
right.
as a reminder, make sure to hit that like and subscribe on either Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, YouTube, however you watch or listen to us ramble on a weekly basis. Like we said, folks, this is the first show out of 3 this week. But we've got a lot of things to cover, and really none of them are about the draft. A couple of things, because there's a couple of rumors, but we've got some bigger NHL world things to talk about. We've got trades, we've got people coming back from surfing, we've got Hall of Fame inductions that will hopefully bring crusty old guy's wish from a couple of weeks ago of you get the induction and then you get the name in the rafters. But let's start with our trades because we have a lot of them. First off, the city of brotherly love is getting 2 of probably the closest best friends, at least that I can think of in the NHL. Guys, that's right. Trevor Zegras is off to be a Philadelphia Flyer to reunite with his bestie, Jamie Drysdale. I think this is great. I think, give Trevor Zegras a change of scenery. I know Krusty has different opinions about Trevor Zegras' playing, but I'm curious to see if the change in scenery and was it really just not meshing with Ducks management that was the issue, or kind of just Ducks being in a bit of a mess. But the Flyers are also in a bit of a mess right now. Who knows? Maybe Tocchet is the guy that can whip Trevor Zegras into shape. It'll be a very intriguing and entertaining thing to see.
Yes, well, it had nothing to do with the Anaheim management. Has everything to do with the play of Trevor Zegras.
I don't know. One person's getting
Period.
traded to another team, and the coach is no longer there. So maybe I doubt that it was 100% on just one person.
Oh, I'm not saying it's 100% on one person. I'm telling you and the listener that Trevor Zegras is his own problem. Period. I had watched enough of him. I saw him win a faceoff from the dick and dominate a shift. Unbelievably. And then I saw him come out for 3 shifts after that. Like he just flat out didn't care. And that's Trevor Zegras in a nutshell. Nobody is ever questioning Trevor Zegras' skill level. Everybody questions his effort. He has no desire to work 2 shifts in a row. You can't live that way. Does this move and all of a sudden does the light go on? Heck yeah, it's possible. But he's got to completely change the way he plays hockey. Because if you don't go close to balls out every shift, you don't make it in this league. You're a liability. So for the NHL, I'm hoping he finally figures it out because he's a really dynamic personality who would be great for the league. So, but he's not going to survive if he continues to play the same way. That's just the way it is. And I guess Beaker, as they like to call him, had no desire to watch the Q and Zegras show.
Well, from what I hear, it also had to deal with, Zegras wasn't going to get kind of the initial positioning in terms of like spot in the lineup that they were envisioning. And so I think they were just like, well, it just wasn't going to work out. But I'm optimistic because I like Zegras a heck of a lot more than crusty old guy does. And I think I don't believe that it's all him. I think
Nobody else playing. All right. There's nobody else out there dogging it.
Prior to the past like 2 years, Anaheim's been a mess.
Right, but whether you're a mess or not, the fact that you dog it 70% of your shifts I don't even see that. The effort that I've seen from him, I don't even see on the Blackhawks.
Yes, you do. Don't lie.
I do not see it to that level. No.
Yeah, you do. He's wearing the C.
And that's the frightening part. And again, is that fixable? Heck yeah. I mean, that's fixable. That's something he can control. Is just to give the effort, shift in, shift out. And as I said, if he gets it, it'd be great for the league. And if he doesn't,
also sounds like someone should have had a talk with him if they were really so upset with it in Anaheim.
I believe they had talks.
Seems like a conversation a coach should have, but that coach is now no longer there and no longer coaching in the league. So maybe he'll get some growth down in the minors as well. So it should be very interesting to see kind of how it all plays out. There's been many a joke of there will be a Michigan off between Trevor Zegras and Mitchkoff for how many times each of them will try to attempt a Michigan during a game. That should be pretty entertaining. But yeah, that was kind of one of the bigger ones this week. I'm trying to think if there's, aside from the one that happened today, what else we got?
I don't know. I thought you had all this stuff written down.
Yeah, I got some things written down. Well, we got the one from today, which I find funny. Not that this man is still in the league, because I'm not the biggest fan of him, and anyone that has serious harassment and allegations and gambling problems, I really don't like to still see play in the NHL. But that is your Evander Kane going to the Vancouver Canucks. Guys, Edmonton's down to only one scumbag on the ice. They've got one in the behind the bench. Well, not behind the bench, but in front office. But I think Evander Kane is going to the Vancouver Canucks. This to me is wild, because all last year, or at least for the front half of last season, we had essentially like a bad reality TV show of like the drama that was going on with the Vancouver Canucks between Pettersson and Miller. Tocchet was getting annoyed. Quinn Hughes just looked like he wished he was anywhere, preferably in New Jersey. And so for a team that makes a big stint about changing the locker room culture and removing the toxicity, you add one of the most toxic personalities in the NHL into your roster. Make it make sense, Krusty.
Well, we talked about this for a second. The sense is, as stated before with the coaching change, I don't believe there's anybody that they pick up that they haven't at least somewhat talked to Quinn Hughes about. And I think this is a direct correlation for the abuse that Hughes dealt with on a nightly basis, and nobody going to deal with the people doing it. Evander Kane is a nut job. Evander Kane is still a decent hockey player. Mm-hmm. That's a fact. He showed it in the playoffs.
He also showed the amount of times he can take stupid penalties for his team.
Oh, I'm not saying that he's not, but I also know when somebody cheap shots Quinn Hughes, I guarantee the next shift, Kane will be out there against him, and Kane will run him. Kane will run him, he'll ragdoll him, whatever. That I know Evander Kane will do. That's why he's being brought in, if you ask me. I'm not a big fan of the player.
Is it worth it, though? Like, I could think of other people that, can be the thumper defender for Quinn Hughes, and
There's not
is worth it.
There's only in the league maybe 10 heavyweights. Evander Kane is a heavyweight. He can take on anyone. I think anybody else, I think it would have been difficult to get. I'm shocked that they took on that whole contract and made things unbelievably easier for a rival. That is a whole different subject to talk about. That Edmonton is in cap problems.
Mm-hmm.
You know how this is all working for them, and for somebody in the division to help them, that's shocking to me. But I do believe Kane is there in an enforcement role, and he will deliver on it. That's for sure. It's part of his makeup. It's part of what makes him a whole nutso package. Will it work?
You couldn't have gotten Zadorov or somebody just slightly less problematic. You had Zadorov. He's been a Canuck. Just get him back.
Yeah, he would have been way too expensive. And I'm a firm believer, if you're actually policing, it needs to be done by a forward. Because if you're talking a top 4 defenseman doing the policing, you will put yourself in a big problem when he sits for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Whereas Evander Kane, you work out it the other way. That's why it's difficult to get the complete enforcer role from a defenseman. At least a good one. Then you have a terrible one that you still got to play. So I'm with you that in so many ways it doesn't make sense, but I'm pointing out the one way where it does make sense. He is there as a protector, because the little bit that I saw is Quinn Hughes was getting rocked left and right. And there wasn't much coming to his defense. And that's unacceptable. Again, that team doesn't have a lot of that. The one guy who comes in is Connor Garland, but he's a midget. Okay? He's like one of those midget wrestlers. So, sorry, Connor. I love the way you play. So that's the gist on that. What else we got? We don't have any other trades?
I don't think so. There's still Oh, yes, we do. We've got Mason Marchment to the Seattle Kraken in a cap dump. Kyle, where were you, buddy? I would gladly take Mason Marchment for a couple of draft picks. That seems almost too easy, Kyle. You would have taken Mason Marchment, and you know it.
Oh, yeah. I like the way he plays, and he's got that funky mustache that just makes you think.
And the eyes. Seattle literally has to desaturate the videos because the eyes are just too mesmerizing.
Yep, but I mean, he's got that gunslinger mustache. I have to figure he had a 10-team no trade, and I guarantee the Chicago Blackhawks were on that.
Probably.
As much as it's a big city, you don't want to come to this. Your value gets buried. He's on the last year of his deal. He's got 1 year left, so you're not coming here and watching all of your point production go down.
Right.
I have liked him? Yes. I will give Kyle a pass on this because I got to figure he's on the list. And Kyle's not going to say that because then we look even more pathetic that nobody wants to come here. It's one of the things we don't like to talk about. We explained to him we have the bean, but, oh well.
Yep.
Okay. So it works for Seattle.
Yeah.
And to make things easier on Seattle, then we took one of their guys.
We did. We've got an even switch with Andre Burakovsky and Joe Veleno. Burakovsky hasn't had the best past couple of years, but he's been very much kind of consistently on and off the injured reserve. I really don't have an expectation on a personal level. I just like to see players that are coming out of the kind of injured reserve funk generally do well. So I hope that he does well here in Chicago, but I don't have like a high expectation with this trade. You know, we take on a bit more salary, helps us get to the cap floor. He's played with Donato in the past in Seattle. I know Krusty made a chirpy comment on Twitter earlier today
What?
about Burakovsky saying that he's a Blackhawk fan, and it's like, isn't everybody a Blackhawk fan? I'm thrilled that we've got somebody that wants to play here because this is a mess. So at least I know the commitment will be there.
It's the same thing everybody says wherever they go. Oh, yeah, I've always been a fan of blah, 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 blah. Come on. What do you want the guy to say? It's an easy one. I don't have any
No,
problem.
we've definitely had players who have not said anything.
Not many. I've heard it from everybody from the draft to everything is, oh my God, yes, I had Blackhawk underwear, and yeah. At the end of the day, Velino was basically worthless. So
Velino was an acquisition for us to dump Mrazek because we needed to get rid of Mrazek for the Spencer Knight acquisition. So he was a means to an end to dump Mrazek.
yes, he was a means to an end to dump Mrazek, who, had he been dumped at the beginning of the season, you could have gotten something for him. Probably something not bad. But that was a swing and a miss, as we like to say in the biz.
Well, we all have emotional responses for when people that we work with complain to the media.
I hear you. So, Burkowski is more of a power forward.
Yeah.
We don't have many.
No.
Is he a goal scorer? He was a little bit in Colorado. It's definitely not a loss.
No.
And it's definitely an improvement. No doubt about that.
I think, no, I lied when I said I have no expectation. I have a feeling that this could be, and we had one of these trades right prior to last year's draft when we acquired the Mickey Mouse. I think it's kind of similar to that. And if he can play above the expectation that Mickey Mouse had when he came in, great.
Yeah. And again, he's a third line player who will probably play on the top six.
Sure, we don't have many of those.
We do not. So, yeah, as far as it's fine. It also sends a bad precursor that we're not getting a lot of help come July 1st, but oh well. Let's talk on another show.
I already told you that. Mitch Marner's going to be a duck. No, just kidding, guys. I'm really starting to think that he's going to be a Vegas Golden Knight, and I'm starting to get concerned, mainly just because I wanted to be right about him going to Anaheim. But we'll see. We also have other news in the NHL world, but this is more on the coaching end. We've got Luke Richardson was hired as an assistant coach for the Nashville Predators. Excited to see him back in the show. Sad that it's in Nashville. Everyone that leaves us, if I like them, I hope to see them employed, but just never by Nashville or St. Louis. Unfortunately, he's with Nashville, but happy to see him back. And then Krusty and I's favorite guy is taking the jump from the AHL back into the NHL. That's right. Todd Nelson is your new assistant coach for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Very excited to see him come back. I'm intrigued to see kind of like what the Pittsburgh coaching staff does in general. You know, you've got a newer head coach in Dan Muse that's made a bigger jump than some of the other head coach hirings this off season, and you've got some more assistant coaches that are being brought on from other teams. So it seems like you're digging out the sage a little bit in that locker room, and I'm intrigued to see how this affects them next season.
Yeah, that one should be weird. As far as the Luke thing, it screamed one thing to me. Andrew Burnett's on a short leash.
Well,
I
we knew
believe
that.
I believe Luke was brought in there for smooth transition. If things don't go well, he will be named head coach. So I think that's why Luke's there. They
Sure.
can't go through another season like they did.
No.
That other little guy is going to have to do something.
Yeah.
So,
but happy to see him back. And then, guys, I've saved the best for last when it comes to players. Our captain, number 19. Guys, I called this too. Our captain is coming back to the NHL.
You and another 8 million people called it.
Yeah, but we were talking about it first. We were talking about
we're always talking.
When he
We're
was
always talking about things
surfing
first.
pictures on Instagram. The hometown boy, Jonathan Toews, is going back to Winnipeg. He is signed. Well, he will sign come July 1 with the Winnipeg Jets for, I believe it's a $2 million contract that has a lot of performance and other attachment clauses in there. So he has the potential to earn more than the initial contract. A lot of that just has to do with how well the Winnipeg Jets do throughout the season and potentially into next year's postseason. But guys, I'm thrilled. I'm so excited. And he's in the division, which means we just get to see him more. The number 19, the true number 19, is coming back to the Central Division. And I'm thrilled. I think this is great for Winnipeg. I think this is great for Johnny. And gosh darn it, I think this is just great for all of the NHL.
It is. I've got a lot of thoughts on it. Let's see. Number one, I have a cruise in January. I have to figure, with all the luck I've had in hockey, that my January cruise comes in his first return game back. With that, I would also like a little something from Nick Foligno. And when he does come back, don't wear that C on your jersey. Let's just have A's. Because as long as that man's playing hockey, there's only one captain of this team. And that's Jonathan Toews. So, for people saying he's been away for 2 years and don't think it's going to work out all that way.
No, I have to finish your point, and then I have something about it.
Oh, that's a finish your point thing?
Yeah.
Okay. I got still like 3 different points. You want to just go in now?
Well, because I have also heard that same thing of he's been away for too long. But the thing is he's been away, but not in a like Backstrom, Oshie, Landeskog sort of way where it's like he's out because he has, or like Patty Kane, he's out because he has no hip or no cartilage left in his knee. I listened to the Empty Netters podcast earlier today, and they made this great point of, he's not out because of something physical. It was physical. It was a long COVID heart situation, but it wasn't anything where it was like he's too concussed to play. He can't walk. He's having pain every time he's putting pressure on his leg. It was a lot of like the mind as well as the heart situation. And so, yes, he's been gone for a while, but I think his case is very different than the other players that have been gone for a long period of time because of like either a surgery or something more physical that directly affects their like skating ability.
Yes. We saw Johnny a couple times at like pregame skates or game day skates, and you could tell there was something off. He's just doing drills and he's bright red, gasping for air. Okay. He's been training now for a while. I guarantee you that's gone. And if that's gone, what's the other problem here? You think he's lost his hockey skills? I don't think so.
It's
He
Jonathan
lost his
Toews.
energy level. He would not be coming back if he thought he was still in the same position. It just, that's my take on Johnny. He wouldn't be coming back if he didn't think energy wise and energy wise and stamina wise, he could not do it.
Right.
So, and then as far as the contract, we'll throw out he's one of the few, if you're away from the game for 2 years, or if you're an over 35 player, you can have these kind of incentives. Because I'm sure your listening audience is going, well, why don't we have this for everybody else? You don't get a lot of pay unless it's specific for over 35 or away from the game for 2 years. Or you're allowed to have incentives on your entry level contract. That's it. You can't put in these kind of bonuses for anybody else. So that's why Johnny's looks the way it does. So, and again, if he hits everything, it's still going to be about $7.5 million. And trust me, if he hits everything, Winnipeg ain't going to care because one of them is the cup.
Right.
So, it's great for the game. It's great for us. I can't wait to see him play. It's very special for him the way he's responded on all those Instas and Minstas and X's and Y's. So I'm glad for him. It brings the old ticker joy. That's for sure.
Definitely. And I think the other question kind of floating around of like, well, where do you expect him to be in the lineup? Wherever. If he's still, it takes him a second to get back up to the like 82 game pace, telling me Winnipeg's not a better team by having Jonathan Toews as your third line center. I doubt he will. I'm thinking worst case scenario. Wherever he slots into the roster is not only an incredible boost for Winnipeg on the ice, but also in that locker room. So I think it doesn't matter.
Your floor is a shutdown centerman.
Yeah.
Your ceiling is a second line center. Do you know how many teams are out there looking for second line centers right now? Trust me, there's at least a third of the league that's looking for a second line center. So it's a no-brainer win for Winnipeg. It's just, again, he could hopefully show them how you win in the playoffs because they really struggled with that.
Maybe, and again, the Empty Netters made a great point of this. Sorry, I was listening to them earlier. Big fan. Maybe Johnny can bring in what he's learned from his travels and from his kind of like self-reflection, self-healing into that locker room to cure Connor Hellebuck.
So you're saying Johnny's going to tell him, quit eating meat, quit doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's,
and you're going to listen to me.
I think basically it's known throughout the league. You don't talk to the goaltender. No matter who you are, what team you're on, you just stay away from them. Fair. They're all a little woo-hoo.
True.
But it's great for Johnny. It's great for Winnipeg. It's a huge plus. It's sad for me because I'll see him in a different jersey, but that wasn't my decision.
Nope, that was yours, Kyle. Anyway, speaking of another former Blackhawk, Christy, would you like to talk about what happened to your other favorite Blackhawk? Guys, he's got the hat on. He's ready.
I'm ready. I was going to break out one of his jerseys, but it's hot out here, so I went with the actual Cabana wear Blackhawks that fits me. Yes, Duncan Keith is a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Are we surprised?
We are not surprised. For those who somewhat new, don't completely understand. There's a great article floating around from Laz that hits the nail on the head. He changed the way defensemen played defense in the no red line era. He was the first to attack. I had never seen anything like it. There's a little bitch fest going on X that, Bobby Earl is the one who changed everything from an offensive standpoint. Laz was not talking offensively. And if you think Bobby Orr changed things defensively, go back and watch the tape, okay? I get in this argument with everybody. Duncan Keith, number one, was an unbelievable defensive defenseman who played as well as he could offensively. And it was on a great team, and that's why he was able to put up massive point totals. But he dictated play. He dictated what a forward did coming down on a rush. Nobody does that. Everybody backpedals, keep him to the outside. He attacks. He attacked. And for a 6-year period, I never saw anything like it. He dominated people. And then, some of the other stuff floating around the internet. God, did he have a short fuse? I forget. He was a nasty man when you messed with him. He didn't care if it was his stick, his elbow, whatever. But he revolutionized the way defensemen could attack. That's the point that Laz was making in this article. It's a very good article. I've never seen anything like it in my time in the league, watching in the league. I didn't see Bobby Orr play live. Well, I might have when he was with Chicago, but he was a shell of himself. But defensively, he was unbelievable. And you'll hear all the stories about the physical specimen he was and what he did come playoff time. And that run from those guys from winning gold to going to cups is freaking crazy for the amount of games that he played. Definitely my second favorite player of all times. The first jersey I ever got with a name on the back was Duncan Keith. So I don't know what else there is to say about it, but he did revolutionize the way defensemen in this era play defense. And he was the backbone. You had Toews, you had Kane, but none of this machine works without Duncan Keith. It just doesn't, especially the style they played. They put a lot of pressure on their defensemen. They left their defensemen on an island a lot because Duncan Keith could handle it. So
you don't get 2015 without Duncan Keith at all.
You do not. And again, I'm so let's rattle off how many Conn Smythe winners were defensemen. That'll be a little job for everybody. Okay, you go find me one. Just unbelievable. And again, the only argument I have with people is understand it was his defensive game that set him apart. It was, I've told you this before. I would go to games and just watch him. And then I would come back and watch the rest of the game that night to see what everybody else did. Yes, nerdy, but just watching him play was a masterpiece. It just was. I never, and to this day, I still don't see anybody attack the way he does. But the Flash had wheels. That first stride and second stride, he was so gosh darn quick. He could come up on you and still turn and beat you to the puck. It was beautiful. So, be a great day in Toronto.
Yeah.
And as I said, I would assume there'll be an announcement.
Send his jersey to the rafters, Danny Wirtz.
Well, they will. They've already stated that they won't be retiring any jerseys next year. But they'll make
do it.
But they'll make the announcement that he's going up. That I can guarantee. I could go on for an hour on this, so you better cut me off. So, or else I can keep
Do you have
talking.
any thoughts and feelings about any of the other Hall of Fame inductees?
Depends on who you want to talk about. Oops, I just lost what I had for all the rest of them. But
My goodness, the one thing that I asked of you.
yeah, it just went away. But you've got Jumbo.
Yep.
You got Joe Thornton, who's unbelievably deserving of it. Chara was a great player, but not even in the class of a Duncan Keith. And then there's McGinley, who, if you know everything that I've heard with this induction class is, my God, why did it take 17 years? And then I've got people that I don't know. You've got Parker, who's part of like the coaching general manager group. We have, I believe, 3 ladies also.
Mm-hmm.
And for your listening off, this is not the NHL Hall of Fame. This is the Hockey Hall of Fame. So this encompasses everybody. Female hockey, college, it is just flat out hockey based. Where there's the NFL Hall of Fame, the Major League Baseball Hall. This is just hockey. I'm not read up on the girls that much. I don't recognize any of them, but I'm glad
I know there is one. I'm blanking on the name right now, but she's a part of, I believe, the Montreal Victoire front office.
Is that Savannah Jed or Savannah Jeed? I've got a Decker and a Bottrill.
I really have no idea. I feel so bad because I watched a lot of the PWHL draft last night.
And there we go, asking questions that we don't know the answer to. Yeah, we should have a counter for that too. But Jumbo played like 1,800 games. He just never got to the promised land. A lot of that was the Blackhawks' fault, and just other teams. But Jumbo was a heck of a player. Chara, everybody knows about Chara. So I think that's all we got to talk about. But the head of that class, the top dog,
is Duncan Keith.
Is a Duncan Keith, no doubt about it. So,
and more importantly, because I know he was on the ballot for consideration, my public enemy number 1 of the NHL, Patrick Elias, did not make it. Because that is just karma for slashing up Tomarutu's face.
Yes, it is. So right. I'm extremely happy for Duncan.
Well, this brings us to our Blackhawk lore of the week, friends. This was sent in by a listener of the show. Requested this.
We have listeners?
We have listeners.
Snapdragon. I kind of figured I was just talking to myself here and you.
This was requested, and I very much agree, because a couple of weeks ago when we talked about the voting in for the centennial year, like the heritage player, and we talked about Pumpkinhead and my belief that he deserves far more credit compared to other guys in that period of time. There's another name that we don't really talk about. Well, we talked about once, I want to say about 10 months ago, with one of our favorite special guests. But the Blackhawks really don't talk about, and he's kind of an underappreciated guy in my opinion. And that is Doug Wilson. So we are going to give just a little bit of lore on the Doug Wilson. Was drafted by the Chicago Blackhawks, played in the NHL from 77 to 93, played most of his career with the Chicago Blackhawks. And then before your time. But it says that then he moved to the San Jose Sharks, and he was San Jose's first captain for the Sharks. But it said that he waived his no trade clause from Chicago to go to San Jose. Did they kind of operate differently for expansions than they have been in like recent years with Vegas and Seattle?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes. Yes. Vegas, Seattle, all of those guys, there wasn't the decent picks from every team, like that expansion draft that you see. That
Right.
wasn't there for anybody else.
You just had to trade and get guys.
You traded, you got guys, and then you got draft picks.
Okay.
That was it. I think you got like one player from each, but it was weird. It was nobody of any consequence. So
Okay. That was the one thing that I was curious about. But won the 84 Canada Cup with Team Canada, which, guys, if you look at the rosters for those teams for 84 in the Canada Cup, it's wild because you've got all of these players where it's like, yeah, they were great for their time. And then it's like a 19-year-old Stevie Yzerman and like a 19-year-old Dominik Hasek. And you're just like, oh, right, at one point they were children. He was labeled one of the top offensive defensemen for the Chicago Blackhawks, was very undervalued for his time, just having an unfortunate kind of time and place of when he played in the NHL, when you had guys like Ray Bourque and Paul Coffey also in the NHL. It was definitely in that period of time where it's the Chicago Blackhawks were good, but they always ran into the Edmonton Oilers. So, and then he was an all-star for, like, went to the all-star games for Chicago. After retiring from the league, he still stayed with San Jose's front office, was the GM for the San Jose Sharks. That's where you get the Jeremy Roenick Hall of Fame induction story, how he gave JR a second chance in the NHL, and then stepped down due to health concerns. And now he is one of the senior advisors for the Pittsburgh Penguins.
yeah, Dougie was a heck of a player, and I think you kind of nailed it. How he was just a tiny bit below the other superstar defenseman. That was a perfect way to put his shot from the point was incredible. But you had that guy from St. Louis, Iafredi, I think, or whatever, who had a monster one. I mean, he was always just that little bit below, but beloved in Chicago. Everybody loved his hair.
That was the other thing that I got
He
from
was
our particular listener.
He was a good-looking man.
And raving that, this was still the time and place where not every hockey player wore a helmet yet.
Yes, and if you're Doug Wilson, you're not wearing a helmet because I got these locks. But everything that we've heard, just a unbelievable human being, which again brings us back to the point why I like the sport. The amount of people that are just over the top, unbelievable human beings is very prevalent in the game of hockey. Doug was here at a time where we couldn't get past Edmonton. Good, but not good enough. But he was a mainstay as a defenseman. He could skate. He could thump people. And again, his shot on the power play was pretty gosh darn nasty. So, again, one of the many players, that's when you start this whole Ring of Honor thing. They've got a ton of players that have played really good hockey.
Yeah.
And, it'll be neat to start doing this for generations that are coming up now who can start to remember Tony Amani, Steve Thomas, who I loved. A lot of people don't even know these guys. So that's a good pick for the lore.
Thank you. I tried. I try. Some weeks we have good ones, some weeks we have not so good ones.
Yeah, they're always good when you're talking, though. They're just never good when I'm talking. I don't quite get that.
All right, Christy. We're going into the draft. I know we're going to talk a little bit after the draft many times. Do you have any feelings? Do you want to talk any, you know, things that we're hearing from birds about the latest things? Any thoughts and feelings? This will be the last time that we can kind of converse prior to first round with our listeners.
Well, number one, I would tell your listeners who was ever going to be watching the draft and everything, you'll find out none of us know what we're talking about.
It's all a crap.
Okay. It's nobody knows. Every draft that happens after like 4 or 5, everything goes woo, and all of a sudden there's a guy who's ranked 40th that's picked 15th. You've got organizations that are into a certain type of player, and so they will reach a little more just so they can get that certain kind of player. The best example of that right now is Anaheim. They've decided big centerman. That's what we're doing with our top picks, and that's what they've done. I mean, other teams want speed. Other teams just want Russians. But we all sit here, and there's a gazillion different mock drafts. And all I can tell you is nobody's going to come close to being right. Everybody's very tight-lipped about the draft process.
What's your thought about the rumblings that San Jose's taking Anton Friendel and Misa's going to be available at 3?
Again, I think that's just silly talk that could be starting other places for somebody to move. I don't know.
Right, but if say Misa is available at 3, are you?
We've discussed that on the show already. If he's there, he's ours. But it's the weird part at the end right now of the draft. All of a sudden, Frondel is the golden child. Why? Why is he the golden child? He's compared to one player who just has hoisted his second Stanley Cup. The comparisons to Barkov, and all of a sudden, he went from figuring he was going to be drafted around 12 to now maybe second. In our little talking world, that's just the way it goes. Martone, I've seen him dropping to 12. I've seen Hagen's dropping to 11.
It's wild.
It's just weird. But again, we have so many people that are watching a little bit and reading a lot like me, but we have no idea.
Right. I do think, and we talked about a little bit about this last week, that, yes, all drafts are crapshoots. But in the past couple of years, it seems like 1 to 2 is typically a lock. And then you have I'd say 3 to 6 are kind of in the same, whether they go in chronological order is beside the point, but they're all kind of in that same group. And then you've got 7 to 12 are kind of in that same bunch, depending on priority. And then you have teams like Anaheim or Detroit who will just go off the board completely with their first pick, and it's become slightly predictable that they're going to do that. But this is one of the more recent drafts where it seems like 2 to 15 are all crap. It seems more wacky than I'd say in the past 2 to 3 years.
Yes, it feels that way to me. I don't believe after Schaefer you have the defensive depth that we usually have in the draft. And you are
it's almost like I was saying that last year on why we should pick Artie, because the defensive level in this year is very different than last year. Oh my gosh, look at that. I was right.
Wow, hockey princess tooting her own horn. You go, girl.
Hey, anything for the Artie Barty.
So in that, and you're centerman heavy, and there's talk that
Which, and that's not to constitute that like one draft year is better than another. Having a lot of defensemen and having a lot of centermen, that's still great because I guarantee the top 5 teams need both, unless you're like us and we have so many defensive prospects. But they're just very heavy on positions, but they're not ranked like a better class over each other.
correct. So I think with that and with the centerman, that's why nobody's sure. And you've got centermen that are ranked like 6th or 7th in the centerman pool that easily could go up. There's usually where there's smoke, there's fire. So I believe when you start to hear that these players are falling, like Martone, like Hagen, they're going to fall.
I want Porter Martone.
I do not believe you are getting Porter Martone. I believe you are getting Frondel or Misa.
Which I'm thrilled. Like
I am on record for stating, at least on this show, and I'll tell your listeners if I have changed my mind right before the draft starts, that I am on the Porter Martone train. The reasoning being, I just think his offensive ceiling is higher than anybody else. He has the ability to become a superstar in the league. I also, again, will tell your listeners to remember, he is not your normal power forward. He is not a power forward. He's a very skilled, gifted offensive player who happens to be tall. There's a difference. Okay. Look at Elias Pettersson.
Mm-hmm.
You don't think power player, but he's very, very skilled.
Yes.
So I just think with that ceiling, I want to take that swing. And I don't think there's a Hawk fan out there that will be disappointed with whoever Kyle decides to get. I don't think you'll see any bitching, whether it's Frondel, the Destroyer, Martoni. Let me take that back. If it's Hagas, just because everybody has a problem that he's 2 inches too small, there might be a problem. But everybody else, it shouldn't be. But these guys look at so much more. I mean, that's why I would love to have Colin Fraser on this show. So, Colin, if you're listening, we'd love to have you on this show. I know deep down you're watching this. Just because I would like to know exactly how that's run. Does everybody go in with a top 100 list? I truly believe they come in with their guys and make their points. And then I believe it then goes down to MacGyver.
Yeah.
And then Kyle signs off on it. That's just my take. But you've got a whole group of hockey people that are looking at this. As I said, I'm a firm believer in the analytic stuff does not translate to the draft because so many players are coming from so many different things. I am all for analytics when you start talking about everybody who's played in the NHL. You're thinking about trades or this or that because they're all in one league, but it just, I don't think it transitions well for the draft.
I think it's a good foundation. I think it's a good base layer to form an opinion, but I don't think that it should be the sole like base of your opinion.
Right. And like a guy like me, especially, and there's a lot of mouthpieces out there that are like me. I watch a lot of hockey. I can see how people perform in a game situation, but I have no idea if Porter Martone, that chunky stride and everything, his turns, is that easy correctable? I have no idea. So the people in those rooms, they're breaking that stuff down and they're saying, "Oh, this we can fix."
Right.
This I don't know if we can fix. And it's way, way past me. So I just take a gander at what I think. 9 out of 10 drafts, I will tell you, I would be taking Frondell. For some reason, I just have a feeling about Martoni that he is going to be a superstar. But I like the safe pick of knowing I've got a second or third line center who's going to do everything on the ice. Usually that's a crusty pick. For some reason this year I'm tweaking it a little
You're
bit.
going more hockey princess side.
Yeah, but I do know you need a couple superstars. You need a Patty Kane. You need a dynamic player also.
Yeah, we're not about to compare Porter Martone to Patty Kane because the last guy who got compared to Patty Kane is rumored to be traded to the Edmonton Oilers.
Who's that?
There's rumors and rumblings that Stan Bowman wants his German pick back.
Oh well, he can have him. He's got nothing to offer me though. What's he going to offer me? Evan Bouchard? Maybe he can make it. He didn't like Evan Bouchard. He decided he wanted Boo instead. So why don't you give us Evan Bouchard? We'll give you Lucas Reichel. That works for me. And that handles your cap issue. There you go. Why don't you correct your mistakes here, Stan?
There you
Set
go.
us Evan back. But that's it.
It's going to be good. It's going to be entertaining. I agree with Krusty's sentiment of really whoever they pick at 3, Frondell, Misa, Martone, Denoyer, it's going to help. It's not going to do nothing. Am I on the Porter Martone train? Yes, because I've been on the Porter Martone train since I formed an opinion about this year's draft class. But it's going to be good. We're pick number 3 for a reason, and the guys that are circling around there are going to help no matter who it is.
Yeah, but I've got to figure Misa's a second line center or a first line center. I mean,
if you're San Jose, you already have your first line center.
I mean, that's the way I'm looking at it, and that's why no matter if he's there, I completely take him because that's a very gifted player. We have a lot of worker bees. I need a superstar bee. That's why I want either Misa or Martoni.
Keep talking for a second.
Okay, I can continue to talk. I've seen some of the other centermen, your Mustag Grab, and a couple others coming up the board. Your Ekblad, I believe it was, also coming up the board. So that middle group is going to be wacky. And again, for us, the Blackhawk organization at 25, it'll be weird because a lot of that's going to depend on who's left on the board. Okay. And again, everybody wants to say the great NASCAR pick by KD. NASCAR fell. That's why he was there. It was shocking that he was still there.
Yeah.
And, I'll talk more throughout the summer about the lowering of expectations from what you saw the last 15 games of the season.
You've been saying that during the postseason, so we've heard that from you.
Yes. So we don't know, but I know we don't have a ton of superstars.
So it'll be good.
It's going to be great. It's going to be super fun. We'll have pizza and a whole bunch of paperwork, 2 computers going.
So much paperwork.
It'll look like Psycho House.
It is going to look like Psycho House. That being said, guys, the plan for this weekend, so we'll have this show coming out on Thursday. Friday is night 1 of the draft, starts at 6 p.m. Central Time or 7 p.m. Eastern, wherever you are. We will be live twice on Friday. We're going to be with Between the Benches prior to the 25th pick in the first round, kind of recapping the number 3, answering their questions. It'll be fun. And then we'll be live after the first round of night 1, Friday night, to kind of just recap everything, go through thoughts, feelings, answer any of your questions. And then Saturday is rounds 2 through 7. They start at 11 a.m. Central Time. And Krusty and I will be going live approximately around the 66th pick if the Blackhawks still have it. If they don't, if they've traded it, we'll still probably go live around that ballpark. So make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. That way you guys get the notification that we are live on YouTube. Yes, Krusty, you have something?
And if anybody joins us both nights and can go into the chat and say they're here twice, we will deliver you a Marianne Hossa banner.
There you go.
And trust me, you'll want it. It's a beautiful looking piece of bannerware.
Absolutely. So make sure to hit that like and subscribe on other Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, YouTube, however you watch or listen to us ramble on a weekly basis. That is all, and we will see you guys tomorrow.